Hey guys, welcome back to Bit Byte Kilobyte. We are already at chapter 4 and today we are going to talk about loops. Okay, so what are loops? Why do we need those? So far whatever programs we have done, our flow of program was mostly going from top to bottom in the program, right? Or within a function. Now that is something that we are going to change in this chapter. So if I tell you here that instead of printing hello world once, I want you to print this 5 times, right? So there's one way, easy way to do that is you can just copy paste this 5 times. Yeah, it works, right? But now if I tell you that, hey buddy, instead of 5, I need to print it 500 times. You can say, yeah, a little bit more work, but I can copy paste this 500 times as well. Yeah, it will work. But there are situations when it will not work. First and foremost, if you write 500 lines of same code, your manager will definitely fire you. So don't try that. And there will be situation where it's not an option at all. Let's see when. So now if I tell you to write a program to take 3 numbers, input from user, one at a time, and then print the sum of it. We'll just create a sum variable as a placeholder, assign it to 0, create a number where we'll take the input, and write enter number 1 on screen and get the input from user and store it in this number variable, right? Now all we need to do is we need to actually sum this up inside sum. So we write sum equal to sum plus number, right? And you can very well repeat this 3 times, right? And you will have what you want. So here we avoided using loop, though we are doing a repeated task where we are taking an input from user from screen, storing it to a number and adding it up. Okay. By the way, this is a way where you can add a number to another existing number, sum equal to sum plus number. The shorthand way to do the same thing is like this, sum plus equal to number. Now, though our objective is achieved here, this is not the best way to do it. And there will be situation where you can't do this. Say, instead of taking 3 numbers, I tell you that how many numbers I want to add up, take that also as an input from end user. Okay. Now you're in trouble because here you have hard coded the number of times you are asking user to enter a number. That will be solved using loops. So before we get into loops, let's quickly understand what is the structure of a loop. Okay. So this is a story of one fine Friday evening at work, right? So imagine that your shift is from 9 to 6. So you start your office in the morning, you do your work, and then towards like 5 o'clock, you remember that you need to go for a party, right? So what you start doing then is after writing every 20 lines of code, maybe you start checking the time, right? So here, if you see the flow that you do the work, what you need to do at office, then you start checking your time, that is at 6 p.m., right? If not, then you continue working. And again, after some time, you again check the time, right? So this continues to go on. You checking your clock and continue to work goes on for some time until really it is 6 p.m. and your shift ends and then you go, let's party, right? So this is a real life example of where you would do a repeated task. Here in our case, it's just checking your watch until and unless a certain condition is met, then you come out of that work and do something else, right? So I like to take real life example, guys. So to simplify this, you start your program, you have a condition which needs to be met to run a loop. So that if that condition is met, you get inside the loop, you execute something that needs to be executed repeatedly, and then you come back in that loop and check that condition again, and you keep on doing that until the condition is met. The moment the condition is no more met, you come out of the loop and execute rest of your program. Okay, so this was our program, pretty much 3 numbers. What I told is I don't want to just enter 3 numbers. Rather, I want to take that as an input from user. How many numbers you want to add? Okay, so what I will do here is first statement, I will say enter numbers to add. Okay, so user will enter how many numbers do they want to add. So instead of storing it in number, I will store it in another variable called count. So count gets set to this. Now our first loop. There are different types of loop or iterative blocks in C Sharp. The first one which we will learn now is while. So what while does is it takes a condition here, okay, and then while has a body, like very much like your if. It also expects within the braces a Boolean value. So while will come out of this block only when this condition is false. Until it is true, it will continue to execute whatever is inside it. So here, what I will do is, I will now, instead of taking these three numbers one by one, I will enter this, or rather till this far, I'll copy this code and paste it here. Okay. Instead of number 1, I'll just say enter number to add. Okay. So now we are taking the input to the variable called number and then adding it up. Now we'll have to do something about this true. We'll come to that. Now let me remove all this. So now when your number is, when you come out of the loop, whenever our condition is met, we wanted to print the sum, and that's what we are doing. Okay. I will make it sum plus equal to number. So this is good. Now we'll have to do something to make this true false in certain condition. Here user has entered the count in this number. So we will have to maintain this counter. So what we will do is we will have another variable called I and we'll set it to 0. So we'll continue until I is lesser than count. So I've done nothing to I. So this condition will continue to be true, right? That's a problem. So what we will do is at the end, when this is done, I will say I plus plus. Okay. This is again a shorthand of I equal to I plus 1. So this is an increment operator where I'm incrementing the value of I by 1. So here we have done something to actually change this answer after a certain number of iterations. This is the most critical part. Okay. If you miss this line, you will be stuck in an infinite loop. So now that our program is ready, let's go ahead and run it. Okay, so first is asking for how many numbers I actually want to add. I will say 3. So it's first saying enter number to add. First number is 5. Second number is 6. Third number is 5 again. So the answer should be 16. So here it is. Sum is 16. Now you saw we made a dynamic program which is not hard coded. And even if user wants to add up 500 numbers, you can use the same program without any changes. This is the magic of loops. I want to make this little better, and instead of saying that enter number to add, I want to say enter number 1, enter number 2, and so on. Okay. So for that, what I will do is I already have a counter called I. I will just print I and set I to 1 to start with because you incremented it by 1. So to adjust that, we will count up until 3, and when it becomes 4, we will get out of the loop. So let's run this program now. So it's asking for the numbers to add. I say 3. So enter number 1 is 20. Enter number 2 is 30. And enter number 3 is 50 to make it 100. Okay, works fine. So this is our first program using while loop. So before we move ahead, let's quickly see how the program execution actually works using stepping through the program. Let's run this program here. So it will ask for the numbers. I will say 3 again. So here, if you see, my breakpoint is hit here. And here at this point, my count is 3. That is something that user has entered. I's value is 1 for the first time. Now what I will do is I will step through it. Okay. Enter number 1, read it from console. I need to go back and enter the first number, which is 12. Then here, if you see sum is 0. After executing this statement, the value of sum will become 12 because that's the first number we just added. Now i's value is 1 for now. After executing this statement, i's value will also be incremented to 2. Okay. Now if you see, if I still move ahead, my program control will go back up again. This is the first time we are seeing this, right? Previously it was all downwards. So now it goes back again and it checks for the condition that I is equal to 2, which is lesser than 3. So condition met. So I will continue and I will ask for the next number again. Okay. I'll just enter 12 again. and run it one more time. So here I is 3, which is lesser than equal to 3. This is the last time we are executing. I'll continue here, enter the number again. I'll enter 12 again. So here if you see, for now it's 24. I will add 12 to it, so it will become 36. Here it is 36. I is currently 3. Now I will become 4. And now 4 is not lesser than count, right? So when I come here, while again tries to execute this, but it checks the condition is not met, so it goes out and then prints it. And we get our result as 36. I hope that explains the flow, how it works. So the next loop that we are going to talk about is do while loop. So do while loop, what it does is you need to write do and write your statement, and then you write while at the end and put the condition here. Okay, so here if you want to execute or convert this program into a do while loop, let me just copy over this here, okay, and put the condition here. It works exactly the same with one exception. I'll tell you what. Okay, and you need to end it with a semicolon, remember that. So now I will just comment this line of code. Here what do does is, if you see the difference between these two types of loop, here the condition check happens upfront. When you start executing a while loop, the first thing it will do, even for the first time, is to check the condition. Here there is no condition check on the top. It just says do this and then check the condition. Okay, so condition checking happens at the end. Here condition checking happens at the beginning. So if I say here that how many numbers you want to add up, if I say 0, right, I don't want to add any numbers, your while loop will do nothing. It will just come out and print the sum as 0 because sum was initially set to 0. But do loop, if we try that out, it will still ask for one number. So I will put it as 0. So see, it still asks for one number, and I said 12, and then it will print 12. Okay, looks like a problem, but there are situations where you actually want to make sure that your loop at least runs once. Okay, you want to run it at least once. Nevertheless, what is the condition? In those kind of certain scenarios, you would use a do loop or a do while loop instead of a while loop. So the next type of loop in C# is for loop. Now for loop has 3 parts. In the first part, you can do initialization of one or more variables. In the second part is where you actually put the condition that you would have put in a while loop. The second part is for that. The third part is basically where you do what you want to do at the end of the loop. So everything becomes part of this first line itself, and within braces, you don't need to increment it at the end of the braces. You just write the code that you need to execute multiple times. So if we try to convert this particular code using for loop, what we would do is, just to show you the initialization part, let me remove this counter from here and instead call it here. Okay, so int type I equal to 1. In the second part, we need to give the condition. So our condition was I lesser than equal to count. We'll do the same here. And for the increment part, we had this. So we will put the same statement here. Okay. Now we put whatever we had here as part of the execution code. So I will uncomment these 2 lines of code. So here we go. So this is your same program converted into a for loop. Let's check it out. Okay, so it's asking me to add numbers. I will add 3 here. So first number is 12, second number is 10, and the last number is 8. So it should give me 30. Okay, so it works exactly fine. So one point to note here is the initialization part and the increment part is something that is optional. You can live without it as well. So I can very well put this outside like it was before. Okay, just align this little bit. And I can very well do the same thing that I was doing there last time here too. Nobody stops you from doing that. So these 2 blocks are conditional. However, you will have to separate these out using these semicolon marks. You cannot get rid of that. but this part is mandatory. You will have to provide the condition. And another flexibility that for loop provides you is, like I said, you can have multiple initialization statements here. So what you can do is you can very well say int I equal to 1, j equal to 2. So it will create two variables, one I and set it to 1, and another variable called j and set it to 2. Okay. Similarly, there are multiple increment operations are also allowed. So I will again move this here and say j plus plus. So this is also allowed. So in these two parts, you may have nothing at all, or you can have multiple statements like these as well. So these were the three main types of loop that in C# we will be using. There's another type of loop which is called for each loop, but that for each loop is actually used for iterating through collections. By collection, I mean array or list or stuff like that. That we will cover in a future chapter. So I'm keeping for each loop out of scope for this particular tutorial. So these are the basic loops: do while, and for. So now let's see what are nested loops. So what you can do is you can have a loop within a loop as well. So you can have int type I equal to 0 to I lesser than 10, I plus plus. This is my parent loop. Inside this, I can have a second level loop as well, where say I have int type j equal to 0 to j lesser than 10, j plus plus. Okay. So in this structure, what will happen is this outer loop will run from 0 to 9, right? So 10 times, it will run 10 times. And within that, there is another loop that will run 10 times. So whatever code you write here will get executed 10 into 10, 100 times. Let me make it a little smaller for you to understand. So let me call it like 2 times instead of 100 times. So whatever I write here will be executed 4 times, and whatever I write here will be executed 2 times, right? So what I did is I just added 2 print lines. One is printing that it's coming from the outer loop. The other one is saying that it's coming from the inner loop. Since the outer loop is running 2 times, you will see outer will be printed twice. And since the inner loop is getting executed 2 times for each of these, so this will be printed 2 into 2, 4 times. Okay. So our output will be outer, inner, inner, then outer, inner, inner. Okay. That is what we are expecting. So let me put a breakpoint and run this and show you how this works. Okay, so we are hitting here. Now I will move ahead. Outer is printed once here. So now we move ahead. Now I get inside this loop. It goes inside because j is 0 now, and then it prints inner. It executes j plus plus here and then checks the condition again and comes inside again and prints inner again. So outer, inner, inner. Now at this point, j will increment again. Now when it checks the condition, j is already 2. So j is not lesser than 2. So it will come out. And then it will increment I here. There it goes. And checks for I again. Since I is lesser than 2, it will continue doing the same thing again. Okay. So I will just run this for now and see the final output. So it prints outer, inner, inner, outer, inner, inner. Okay. So that's how nested loops work. You can do the same on while loop, do while loop, and you can mix and match them as well. Like you can have a while inside for or a for inside while. Nobody stops you. So more you nest your loops, worse the performance becomes to your program. If you feel that you are in the need of doing that, rethink again. Maybe there is a better way to do that. Avoid more than 2 levels of nesting wherever possible. Okay, now the last topic here in this chapter would be 2 statements. One is the break statement, the other is continue statement. So what break statement does is it actually takes you outside of the loop in which the break statement is executed. Okay, so suppose I'm counting from 1 to 10 here and I'm printing the value of I as I go. What I can do is I can say based on certain condition, I is equal to 5, I want to break from this loop. Okay. In real world, you will have certain conditions here based on which you will break. But for this example, we are just saying that if I is equal to 5, I want to break it. Okay. Now, in this case, what will happen is it will print from 0 to 5. And then after printing 5, it will check the condition and it will break, means it will come out of this loop. So now let me run this and see the output. So as you can see, it printed from 0 to 5. Even though I've said like run it 10 times, it did not. It exited when the value was 5 because I did break. So now let's talk about the continue statement. So what continue statement does is, if I take this out from here and put here and replace the break with a continue, what will happen is, so it will skip all subsequent statements and jump to the next iteration. So here it will print from 0 to 4, but when it comes to 5, it will not print it and go away and come in the next execution. And it will skip this line because after continue, nothing will get executed. And then it will come back again and start printing from 6. So we will see that number 5 will be skipped. Okay. So let's see the output here. If you see, number 5 is missing here because when it came to 5, it just skipped. So let's put a breakpoint here when this continue thing is happening to see the behavior. Okay, so now it's 5. It has printed till 4. For the 5th time it entered here. Now continue. The moment it executes continue, just take a note where the control goes. There it goes. So it goes, it skips all the statements here and goes to the increment operator. So that was pretty much it for loops. We covered lesson 4 today. In the next video, we will move on to lesson 5, where we will talk about collections, arrays and strings. So stay tuned for chapter 5, and guys, would request you to kindly subscribe to my channel, like the video and share with your friends so that you can support my channel and I can continue making these videos. Thanks a lot for watching. See you in the next video. Bye bye.